Hello, 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 hello. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible. Okay. Am I audible? Anybody can just comment in the chat box. Hmm? Okay. And the I guess voice is better than yesterday. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. Great. So now I guess yeah. So now there won't be any kind of a extra. Yeah, okay. So let's start now. So today, what is it that we are going to want to understand? Okay, I'll start the session now. And today, what we need to understand is we need to understand few topics. I'm just going to go and put it on the whiteboard. Okay, so just look at the whiteboard on screen. Here we go. So a few things which we are going to go and understand. So we need to understand today a concept which is single page application versus multi-page application. Okay, this is the concept we need to understand today. Second thing we need to understand is something which is some basic objects which JavaScript provides. Okay, we are going to go and anyway use these objects later on. So we'll be using certain objects today. Like I said it in the agenda which I have defined and in the agenda that I have already conveyed in the over the group and over the LinkedIn as well. So in the agenda, major part is SPA versus MPA, but then we'll also be covering something like certain objects like window, something like we already have seen document object, but window, then document, then something called as navigator. Okay. Then there is something which is called as history object. Then there is something which is called as JSON, and then there is something last May. There is something called as XHR. Okay, so these are the objects we are going to go and have a discussion about their methods, where exactly these objects are going to be helpful. So we need to understand all of that. Okay, so to start with, we'll start with something like SPA versus MPA, and then we'll slowly move into these what you call it as objects, which are helper objects, which we can use inside JavaScript. Okay, so let's plan to start something like, okay, use the screen right now. Here we go. So this is day 2 content, and I need to open a VS Code now, as you know. Okay, let's open VS Code. And in this, we need to start with single page application. So I'm literally going to go and define one very simple application using plain HTML, okay, wherein there will be some navigation in place, there will be some sort of look and feel in place, and then we'll try to understand how exactly one can go and create a multi-page application, or rather single page application out of it. So let's try to understand the differences first. Okay, here we go. Let's close this. So I'll have one okay file added out here. Okay, let me add a file, and the file name is, it's a very simple website. So the overall idea is we want to simply create a home page, about page, contact page. Okay, and there should be simple navigation between these pages. Okay, a very simple code. And to do so, we can actually go and maybe define some sort of pages like this. So I would go and define home.html, a very simple page without using JavaScript. We are just going to go and define 3 pages website, and then kind of a linking between these websites. Okay, so take an example, home.html. I'll have HTML here added, and let's have title as is. Maybe I'll just call this as demo. Okay, and then we'll just plan to add something like just on the top, we can just mention this is like, okay, it's a home page. There can be some sort of logo we can keep on adding. There can be something which is called as some sort of a content which is simple navigation content, and the actual content. So what I'm trying to do is something like this. There can be logo as well that we can keep on adding. So take an example, I'll add an image. Okay, now the image does not exist, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this image of the logo, and I'm just going to want paste it inside the folder which is our day 2 folder. Okay, so I've just pasted this. Now what happens is bvs.jpg is something which needs to be showcased. Okay, to the end users. Alternative text can be there. We can just have height and width. So style may I can add height, let's say 100 px. We can add width. This can be another 100 px. Okay, and then there can be some sort of HR as in ruler that we can have. How does it look like? You can just right click, view this in the live server way, and what you see on a screen is, wait, watch. So what you will see on a screen is, it's yet to come on a screen. Hold on. Okay, let's say go live. Okay, maybe what I can do is I can just go to browser, and I'm just going to go and type in over here http colon slash slash, okay, 127.0.0.1 5500, that is a port number, and I can call this as home.html. Look at this. This is the, at 100%, this is how the look and feel looks like. Okay, just a logo, nothing else. Go back to the code now. And after this HR, let's have one more HR. And in between these, what you call it as lines, what I would need is, I would need a menu. Okay. So in these two HR lines, I would need a menu. So I will put here ahref. Let us say a call should be given to home HTML, and then we can just write down home. And then there can be some decoration in between, like a space and, okay. And then what I need is, now I need a linking between these pages. So I would simply say about us. Okay, about.html. I can say they can be contact.html, and then we can just present over here some sort of links. Let's call it as about us. Let's call contact. So maybe we can call contact us. Okay. So these are simple. This is a simple HTML page which basically has got some links as well. And maybe after this HR, there can be something like a footer that we can come up with. Okay. So towards the end, there can be some sort of center tag, and there can be something which is called as some footer. Okay, and then between this HR, what we can have is home specific content can be written, and let us say welcome to home page is a content. So all in all, if you look at, this is how the page looks like right now. Okay, so there is a welcome to home page content, there is a footer, there is this content that we have. And just to ensure that these contents are properly written, what I can do is I can provide a space for it. I can have a division written, and I can just call this as, so and so. Just to ensure that these contents are properly identified in case required, what I would do is I would go for defining a ID, and that ID would be something like, let's say, maybe a root. Okay, so I have just defined here a ID called as root as of now. So it's a very simple HTML page which basically has got just a HTML content defined and put up on a screen with a certain link buttons and a logo and a H1 which says welcome to home page, nothing else. Okay. Now, other pages that we have here, about page, contact page, these pages are also required. So what we'll do is we will pick up, I'll copy paste rather, copy this and put it as, what is the name now? About.html. Again, copy paste and then name it as contact.html. See, we have defined individual pages by simply doing copy and paste as of now. Now have a look here. What is the matter which will change now? In the about.html, the matter which will change is over here, and I would simply say about us. Okay. Then the next thing is, under the contact page, I'll keep everything else as is, and I will change over here, contact us here. It's a very simple UI, contact us here. So let's take an example. These are three pages with some sort of basic HTML, what you call contents. And normally what happens out here is this. You can very well see by default we are seeing a home page. And whenever you click on about us, whenever you click on about us, what happens is there is going to be about us ka page which comes up on a screen. If I click on contact us, there is a new call which comes up is contact us. Okay, page which comes up on a screen. So overall, what is happening is every time we are shooting call to a server, and every time we are downloading something which is called as the content. Please have a look. How do we get that content? Go to the network and observe this very easily. Look at this. Huh? If I click on home, look at the call which is given in the network window. Okay, click. There is a call given to home.html, and since home.html has a dependency, then you will see bvs.jpg, which is a image. That image is also called and then downloaded. Okay, if I close here, what if I click on about us? So there is a call given to about us page. There is a bvs.jpg again called up, clean. If I click on contact, there is a call given to contact, and contact has a dependency on bvs.jpg. So bvs.jpg is what is downloaded. So all in all, if you see, every other time I am downloading the HTML content on the browser side. So every time there is some amount of data which is definitely getting downloaded. Now have a look here. Every other time when I say HTML is getting downloaded, it means every other time there is this doc type HTML, head, title, body, this image, HR, everything is getting downloaded. Per character, 1 byte. If the equation is per character, 1 byte, you will eventually find out one character equal to 1 byte. With that equation, you are downloading multiple number of things which are common, but every other time you are downloading it. Which means if at all I consider body as this, tag. So for body as a word, 4 characters, the tag, the tag braces that you see, eventually you'll find out 6 characters, 6 characters, 6 byte. So overall idea is 6 characters or 6 bytes are definitely, every time we are spending to download body as in, the opening tag. And then maybe slash body, maybe something which is called as, let's say, 7 amount of bytes. So you are trying to download almost every other time too much of content which is repetitive. So this is, routine HTML, and this is what people do normally when they define websites like this. Now come up with another approach. Something like this is when you define pages individually like this. Okay, individual pages, individual HTML pages, and you keep on downloading it based on the demand. This can be called up as multi-page application, which means individual pages designed specifically for, or individual HTML pages designed along with even a common or copy pasted look and feel is what you can say. I mean, even if it's a common look and feel, still you keep on downloading it every other time. It is something which is basically, what people have been doing when they define some sort of websites knowing HTML alone. Now come up with another approach. If this is multi-page application and I have got link buttons to basically navigate and call for a page, now I would like to define a single page application, which means all of this in a single page. And how do I do that? Please have a look now. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create here a folder. Okay. I'll create a folder. Let's call this as multi-page application. And then all of these pages that you saw, I'm going to go and push it inside MPA folder. Okay. I'm going to go and push this inside MPA folder. Let's close this multi-page application folder. And now let us create another folder for our understanding called as SPA. Okay. And let us plan to run SPA kind of a content initially. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'll close this Visual Studio Code. Whatever exists, maybe I'll just copy rather. Whatever exists in MPA, I'm going to go and copy paste inside SPA. Okay. And now what I'll do is one more time, I will be opening this in VS Code. So CD, maybe I would say SPA, and then I'll simply go for VS Code again. Now please look at this. What is a technique that we need to understand right now? A simple SPA concept. Have a look here. So with the SPA concept, what happens is there is a single page which we are looking for. Okay. So what can be done is out here, let us have index.html. So by default, what happens is whatsoever is a common look and feel that HTML page has defined, maybe home has defined, let's copy paste it inside the HTML page. Okay. So this is something which is, an index page that we have defined. An index page basically just have got nothing, no home, nothing, just a empty div id equal to root. And now what happens is when we shoot a call and open this with live server, what you see is out here. Okay. Now I'm looking for something like SPA. So sorry, I'm looking for index.html. Have a look now. So this is the overall look and feel that we see. So by default, between the menu and between the footer, the gap is there, which is empty div if you look at it. What is the thing that we want to see? We want to load the content inside this div id equal to root, and that content is to be home HTML content, about HTML content, and contact us HTML content. Okay, and how do I grab that? Now please have a look. The very first thing, I'll start writing JavaScript over here. Okay, so whenever somebody shoots a call to index page, whenever somebody shoots a call to index page, what I want to do, I would like to search for this div id equal to root. Okay, so I can go ahead and say, okay, please search for div id equal to root. How do I do that? Var a reference to root, okay, and get the div id equal to root. Once we have it, now we are interested in whatever was the content inside the div id equal to root when the home HTML was expected, or we were expecting. At that time, that content is something we'll be adding as a inner HTML, okay, in here. So what can be done over here is I can say where content is equal to, and that content is going to be, what was the content earlier? The content was welcome to home page. Now the same content is basically added over here, welcome to home page. What you see is we are trying to find out using JavaScript div id equal to root. We are going to go and define some content programmatically, and then under the reference to root element, inner HTML will be assigning a content. So what will happen? This code is directly added inside a script. Means what will happen? Whenever somebody asks for this index HTML, what will happen? After this basic UI and an empty div here, what will happen? We will be finding via JavaScript this div id equal to root. We'll be adding this content programmatically inside it, and we'll see the HTML on a screen. And now if you just go back and see here, by default, what you see, welcome to home page. See, what did I call? Index HTML. But what do I see? The home page content right now. Now take an example. This is not something which is sufficient, because if I click on these buttons like about, like contact, what I want is I want to keep on loading different content based on the need. So what is the thing that we will try to do now? We'll try to do something like this. Please have a look. What I'll do is I will plan to create some sort of function out of this. And that function is what we'll call whenever somebody clicks on those buttons or link buttons. Okay. So let us try to write down a function over here. And let us try to write a function, and let's call this as load. Okay. Load. And under the load function, we'll have this logic written. But the only thing is, this is not sufficient. We are trying to find out this reference to root. Okay, we have this hard-coded content which is welcome to home. This content needs to keep on changing. Okay, so let us do one thing. Initially, we will just have this content as blank, nothing else. Okay, and based on what is conveyed over here in a load, based on that, we will keep on loading the content. So let us say page name I'll ask for. So whatever is the page name that you provide, based on that, what we'll do is we'll keep on loading the respective content. So what is expected over here as a logic? We'll be expecting over here, look at this now. If the page name is home, okay, content is equal to welcome to home page. If the content is about, what was there on a about page for us? There was something like about us, okay, copy this. This is what is we needed, okay. So what we'll have here is about us. So content will be about us. What was next? There was a contact us, if you see. So specifically for contact, let's copy this, close this, and push it over here as in contact us, content. Please have a look now. We have a function called as load. We have here something which is called as a page name. And based on the page name, we are going to go and define the content value. So if the page name is home, let us say welcome home. If the page name is about, let us say about us. If the page name is contact, let us say contact us. And whatever is the content defined, that content is what will be showing inside the div id equal to root. Okay. And now we need to keep on calling this load function every other time. So if I just minimize this, and what will happen if at all I shoot a call like this directly over here, load and home. So if I hardcode and say load home, what will happen? This function will be called with the parameter home. Internally, we'll find out this div id equal to root, and this will be loaded with the home related content initially, because we know when the first time page loads, we are going to show user home page content. So let us run this and see what you see on a screen. So initially what you can see, homepage content is what is loaded over here. Hold on now. On a button click, on about us click, on a contact us click, what you need is you need certain what you call it as content to be added. On about us, we were navigating some time back. Now we are not interested in navigation. We are interested in loading the specific content. So on the button click now, okay, instead of we having href over here, so we'll not have href with this link button. Okay, what we'll do is I'll just say on click equal to, with the link button, I would say on click equal to, and we will call a load function out here, and the load function will basically will pass on, okay, load home, which means we are going to call on click load, and home is what we'll ask for loading. Next, let's remove this href equal to so and so. Let's go and convey on click equal to, let us call load, and then let us pass on over here something like about as a parameter. And the next thing is over this link button, let us go ahead and simply say on click equal to, let us call load, and a parameter would be contact. So what will happen now, whenever somebody clicks on home button, a home will be passed to a load, about word will be passed to the load, and contact will be passed to the load based on the clicks. And then eventually what will happen, whenever the respective page name comes up, eventually what will happen, will be loading these contents inside the div id equal to root. Now, if I save this code and if I run this piece of code, please have a look. How many pages are there right now? Only one. Okay. By default, what you see is home page. And suppose if I click on about, what you see? About us content is getting loaded. Look at the URL. URL is still index.html only. If you look at what is the URL right now? Index.html only. And now what happens is if I click on contact, this is the contact us here. So you click on either of these buttons and what happens is the respective content is basically getting loaded on a screen. So the URL is not changing, but the content is changing. Okay. And if you look at this, the image is not getting downloaded. Neither the what you call as Ahrefs are getting downloaded. Neither the footer is getting downloaded, nor the HR is getting downloaded. Doesn't matter. What happens is we are just changing the content based on demand. And if you just want to see this, have a look. Go to the network window. Initially, when you run the application, what is being downloaded is index.html and bbs.jpg. That's it. Now, please have a look. Close this. Now you click on about. See, nothing is downloaded over here. Click on contact. Nothing is downloaded over here. So you keep on clicking on these buttons and what you see, nothing is getting downloaded because the content is getting created specifically within the JavaScript code itself and the content is getting loaded. So a single page which is basically behaving, a single page which is basically making it appear as if this is multi-page, okay, application. But a single page along with JavaScript makes the difference over here. Okay, there's a single page, okay, along with JavaScript is making the difference right now. Okay, I hope we are clear till now. Okay, if you are there and if you are understanding this right now, please comment. I'll wait. Okay, I'm waiting for your comments. Okay, okay, great. So if this is clear, thank you. So if it is clear now, what we need to understand is something like, obviously, something like the content for home is very, very simple right now. Okay, the content for something like home is very simple. Content for about right now is very simple. Content for contact is also very simple. In ideal, in actual scenario, in a what you call it as application scenario, pages may not be this small and pages may not be this what you call it as small and easy. Okay, and that's the reason you will find out adding a content like this, okay, content equal to h1 welcome to home and blah blah, you will find out this won't help you in longer run. because then the entire page content is which we are going to go and target over here in single quote. And that's the reason what is expected, guys, is it is expected that you construct such kind of a HTML somewhere else. Okay. And that's the reason normally what developers like you and me would do is we can very well go ahead and see a different, approach altogether. Please try to understand this. In this application, SPA, I do not need this. Okay. I don't need these pages now anymore. So I just have one single page index.html, and under index.html, I have got this simple if else and a logic return. Single page application concept. And then we keep on loading the content inside div id equal to root. Hold on now. Now, can we improve this piece of code? Obviously, yes. How is that? We can improve this using a concept like these contents, something which is hard coded right now, but these contents are definitely going to be larger in actual scenario. So instead of writing this content over here as a hard coded content, why can't we just go ahead and create a separate file for this? So I am just going to go and have a version created for this page. Okay, if this is SPA, okay, code, which is version 1, I'll call it as index version 1, just the initial version, so that it can be used for references later. Now the next thing, look at this index page that we have. So what is it that we can do now? Let the person, let the developer like you and me create these contents separately somewhere else. And how do I do that? Let us cut this from here. Okay, let's cut this from here. Why can't we just go ahead and write down the JS separately? So why can't we just have a function written over here, function home? Okay, and we can simply say return and whatever we have cut. Next, why can't we just have over here the content, okay, cut from here, and why can't we just go ahead and say, okay, function something which is called as about, okay, and return something which is this about us ka content. Why can't we just do something like this? Another function we can write down something which is called as about, so we can say contact, and contact us here can be written. And now we can remove this part as well. And what do we do then? We can just keep on calling over here a home function. We can keep on calling about function, and we can keep on calling contact function over here. Okay. A small change in the application, that is, whenever a page loads, we'll be passing call for home. When a home word is passed, we'll be calling home function. Home function basically returns this UI, and this UI is loaded in as a content inside that div id equal to root, which is the empty div. Next, when somebody says about, call about. When somebody says contact, call contact, and it works well. Please have a look now. This also works well. Okay, it's the same index page. Refresh. Look at this. It's the same sort of look and feel which you keep on getting over here. It's the same content, same look and feel which you keep on getting over here. Okay. Now take it to the next level. This particular page is bulky right now, because if we consider that home content will definitely increase when the actual home page content basically kind of it becomes large. About page content will definitely be bigger than what you see on line number 38. And that's the reason normally what you need is you need to define these functions somewhere else for better maintenance, separation of concerns. So let us define these functions somewhere else. Okay. Is it not true that, if at all I do that, so it is like more like I am actually going to go and define separate functions. So, it's one and the same thing. It was HTML page earlier. Now it is JavaScript files. But I'll tell you the differences. Okay. Why exactly we need this? Say I'll move this home and I will create a file here. Okay. Let us say home.js. Okay. Please try to understand this home.js function here. Okay. Next, I'll have about.js. Okay, here we go. So about content is moved, and we can just put it over here. Save this. Save this. contact page content. Okay, contact page content. And now what you see is your index page basically has a dependency on home function, about function, and contact function. And we do not have those functions over here. So what is expected now? You will have to import those functions before you shoot a call. So you may say script src, and you may say, okay, I need a home page. You may say, I need something which is okay, script src. I need something which is about us, and I also need something which is contact us. Okay, so the thing is, you declared and defined separate files which has got home, contact, about like functions, and those functions is what you are basically calling over here. Means this particular HTML file has a dependency on BVS JPG. This particular HTML file has a dependency on home, about, and contact.js. Okay, and then the respective functions are going to get called whenever a kind of maybe respective call is given, maybe on a button click or maybe directly like this. Let us try to understand what comes up on a screen now. Okay, clean this and try to understand it. Refresh please. Look at this. How many things are getting downloaded right now? You can see here index.html is getting downloaded. You can see over here BVS JPG is getting downloaded. And you can see over here home.js, about.js, contact.js is getting downloaded over here. Okay, so three files are downloaded, but once it is downloaded, it's in memory now. Now you keep on calling these functions. Okay, and the respective UI is loaded in the UI. I mean, respective HTML is loaded into the div id equal to root. So this is still a single page application, but JavaScript is much more manageable. JavaScript code is written separately. Okay, the JavaScript code is written separately is what we can say. Now, if you look at from a React perspective, okay, if you look from React perspective, this particular piece of code like home, okay, in React, this can be called as a function component. Something which provides a UI, this can be called as a functional component. Something which provides a function, which provides a UI, okay, which can be data bound UI too. Next, we have written similar function for contact. So contact is also a function component. About us, for about.js, this is also a function component. So React may, you will find out, you will see similar kind of functions we'll be writing soon or later, and those functions will do what? Those functions will return some sort of UI. It can be data bound UI based on the need. Now take it to the next level. What will happen if at all, okay, if at all, instead of writing home as a function, have a look, instead of writing home as a function, what will happen if at all I write home as a class? So just imagine a situation. If I write class home, we saw yesterday this syntax if you recall. Okay, what if I write down class home? Okay, what if I just write down something which is called as a render function inside it? Okay, a render function inside it, and then home class basically does what? It has a render function and returns this welcome home wala content. So whenever somebody needs home related UI, the options that we have is one option. If I would have written home like this, you just simply call home round bracket, simple. But if somebody goes and writes down home class like this particular way, so what will happen is somebody will have to go and create home class object and simply shoot a call to render and get the UI in that case. Why did I write render as a what you call maybe method? You will understand it. Okay, it's just a something which is called as some UI provisioning is what we are trying to do. So render, return the UI, it means. Okay, or kind of give the UI. So what is it that we are going to go and do now? Ultimately, or showcase the UI. So home class is there. The only thing which will change in the code now is instead of we calling home like this, a small change will happen here, guys. And the small change is you will have to create a home class object. Okay, home object, since it's a class, new home. Okay, and you will call over here content is equal to something like home object dot render. And whatever render function basically offers you, that is what you're going to want hold it in a content, and you're going to want load it in a inner HTML, if you look at it. So the overall idea is very simple. One more time, if you look at it, everything will be downloaded. Okay, I'll have to run this again. There's a small change, I guess. We'll have home. Did I save everything? A class home is there. Okay, and most probably, yep, class home is there. All good. Okay, let's see. There is some change or some mistake I may have made. Let me show you. Let's see if at all it really comes down to this. Let's put a debugger over here. Okay, so let's try to put here. Oh, so sorry. No, I guess it's all correct. Let's put a debugger here and see. Here we go. Refresh. So we have here, okay, home class object, and new home is what is written, and home has a function. Okay, a home dot render, and it does not give me anything. Okay, let's see. New home. Okay, I guess it needs to be exported, and which we haven't seen yet. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's do one thing now. Let's make a small change here, guys. Let us create home. Okay, maybe in some other file for a minute. So I can just say script here. Mm, home is not defined. Did I save? Okay, I'll have to come up with this code now. Does it work well? Did I put a debugger? Nope. Yeah, we can export home. I did not cover something which is called as export, home like related content. And that's the reason I did not use export. Export import will definitely work, no doubt about that. Okay, let's see if it works. Still nope. Okay, so here we go. F10, F10. There is a home class object. Yeah, it seems all okay. Yep. And the render doesn't work over here. Why? Oh, render R is capital. So sorry. It is R should be small over here. Should have worked earlier as well. There you go. And I should be able to see the home page UI. Okay, so it was a mistake. And I can just remove this home now. I guess this is no more required here. And here also we can just go ahead, write the piece of code. Okay. Yeah, it should work now. Remove this. Continue, please. Okay, this is the home UI. So it works well. Okay. Go back to the code, and then I can just remove this debugger for a minute. So one way to run this piece of code is if you look at network window now, clean. I have got all the JS files downloaded. And now what you can see is you can just keep on clicking on these buttons, and then what happens is the contents are basically showcased to the end user. So what you can see is one of the important aspect. Sometimes home can be a function or home can be a class too. And when it comes to something which is called as a React, in React, you will find out somewhat similar happens. You end up writing functions like this. This in React is eventually is called as function component. Okay. And this in case of React is actually called as class component. So ahead of time, we are trying to understand that there is something which is called as a component concept. Component means it can be a function. Component means it can be a class. And then eventually there can be class return which can produce a look and feel, or there can be a function which can return a look and feel. That's the overall idea. And then what is it that happens in case of React? It's a single page application more or less like this, wherein by default there will be some sort of empty look and feel like this, and the content is going to be loaded okay, programmatically, based on your navigation, based on your conditions, based on who logs in, the respective content will be loaded into div id equal to root. So only one page is what developer will call, or a person will call, not exactly developer, end customer will call, and then respectively a UI will be loaded or created and loaded into the what you call as div id equal to root. Now, few more facts that you need to understand. Okay, what we have done is we have come a long way from a multi-page application wherein separate pages were there. We basically went on to define something called as version 1, wherein I just try to write down simple switch case. But knowing a fact that writing such kind of a hard-coded UI over here doesn't make any sense. And this is not practical too. That is the reason what did we do? We tried to move everything into separate JavaScript file for better maintenance. And those JavaScript files can consist of functions or classes like this. Naming convention is different. Sometimes we call it as class component, sometimes we call it as functional component. Now hold on for a minute. What is a kind of a problem in this approach? The problem in this approach, if you look at it, when I shoot a call to index page, okay, when I shoot a call to index page for the first time, everything is downloaded over here, home, about, contact, and so and so. And now, if you look at it well, how much amount of size, how much amount of size does a home.js have? So home.js ka size is something which is 239 bytes, okay? The total size is 239 bytes. Now have a look. If the home size is 239 bytes, how much amount of bits and bytes we have spent while downloading home.js? Have a look now. If you look at home.js now, okay, so 239 bytes, and you can see over here, we have actually spent 0.4 kilobyte. So overall idea, if you look at it, it tells you if you have a look at it, okay, I mean, maybe over here, home. It can tell you that the resource size is 0.2 kilobyte. Okay, look at my cursor and look at the tooltip which is shown, and in that tooltip what you see is 0.2 kilobyte is the actual resource size. But how much amount of transfer which has happened over here? The transfer which has happened is 0.6 kilobyte. Why? Because the content doesn't travel alone as it is. The content sits inside the packet, and the packet basically has some what you call it as headers. The packet basically has got some sort of header information. I'll give you a very good example. If you're going to go send us some sort of courier to somebody, a person at a courier office, a person at a courier, what you call it as, maybe a counter, that person doesn't charge you only for the actual content. The person will also weigh the kind of a box you're going to go and send a courier with. If there is an envelope, the person will also weigh the envelope and will charge you accordingly. So you need to understand you have to pay for the header information as well. What you write on top of that envelope to from, for that also there is a weight. So you will eventually be paying not for 0.2 kilobyte, you will be paying for 0.6 kilobyte, because 0.4 kilobyte basically is header size is what you see over here, at least in this home case. Then the thing is, we are downloading home related content, we are downloading about related content, and we are downloading contact related content. So why to spend, okay, every time we call for this, why to keep on spending, 0.4 kilobyte for the header information? Why can't we just go and pack everything inside one packet? So what I mean to do is this. Once, listen to me very carefully. Once your entire development is done, okay, once your entire development is done, then what is suggested approach is this. Please have a look now. I'll be creating another folder over here. Call this as version 1. I'll move this version 1 over here. I'll rename this as index.html. Okay, this is version 1. Let us create another folder. Another folder. Call it as v2. Okay, let us have all of these things copied and put up inside v2. Okay, v2 has one version. Now try to understand this another theory over here. So what is expected over here? Three different files, of certain sizes are getting downloaded, and every other time we are spending 0.4 KB in headers. Why to do that? Why can't just, we bunch all the files together and we can spend once only the 0.4 kilobyte? Let us do that. How do I do this? I'm going to go and create another file over here. I'll be creating another file over here. And let us say this particular file, I'll call it as bundle.js. I'll call it as bundle.js. And what will happen in bundle.js? The home content, okay, maybe this or maybe this. The home content that you have, okay, written, get this and put it over here. So home content code is here. What else? About related function code is over here. Okay. Specifically contact related content is going to be over here. Okay. This code is all over here right now. And then I'm going to go and delete about code. I'm going to delete contact code. I'm going to delete home code. Okay. And now what you see is there is only one file available, bundle.js, which has everything inside it. Okay. And now index.html need not go and download all of them. Rather, over here, the index.html will only have to download one file. And what is that? Bundle.js. So what will happen now? All the bundled and packaged content is what will be coming at once on the browser side. How much amount of size I'll be spending now? Please have a look. Refresh this. What's the total size over here? So you can see over here, total size of the resource is 0.2 KB and the header size 0.3 KB, for example. So overall, I mean, even if I refresh this, hard refresh, hard refresh. If I hard refresh, what you can see, 0.6 KB is transferred specifically for the headers, and 0.2 KB is for the actual resource, if you see. And the problem solved. Every time we spending 0.4, 0.4, 0.4 for 3 times. Instead of that, we are spending 0.6 KB in headers and 0.2 KB in actual resource sizes. So this is much more efficient in terms of downloading the content on the browser side, if you say. But then obviously maintenance becomes the issue, right? Because for every page, if I keep on writing the code like this in a bundle.js, like code for home here, code for about also here, code for contact also here, listen to me very carefully. We do not do something like this directly. For maintenance purpose, we will still keep on writing home.js separately, about.js separately, contact.js separately. This is something which is a concept called as bundling. So what will happen is after your entire development is done, there are certain tools available, and those tools will actually do what? These tools will actually go and combine multiple JavaScript page contents, and they will actually go and construct one single JavaScript file out of this, well known as bundling. Okay, so what happens is you actually will be creating a code like this only later on. Okay, whatever you saw in V2, more like that only. The only thing is, like, after you're done with V2 version, automatically what will happen, using certain number of tools, packaging tools, you will be bundling all the JavaScript into one single JS file. Reason, very simple. Every time you downloading a JS file increases the amount of data transfer by simply adding a header into it. Why do I do that? So better is you can always have multiple JavaScript functions written in a single file. This is clubbing everything together so that it can just go in one go. We don't have to keep on spending money for envelope every other time, or something which is called as bandwidth for envelope every other time. And now please have a look. Is this sufficient? So no, because this content is much more readable. So instead of we going with, this is version number 3, okay, I'll call this as version number 3 for your reference. If this is version number 3, if this is version number 3, then the next thing which happens is we don't want to keep on having these spaces and everything. If you recall, yesterday we discussed about something called as minification of a file, if you understand it well. So why are we spending money? Why are we spending bandwidth on these empty spaces? One space is equal to one, what you call as byte, for example. So why are we basically spending this much amount of money and bandwidth? So do one thing then. Have a copy of this particular code maintained. Do one thing, go to minification, search for that JavaScript minification we talked about. Okay, I'll just use one of the online tool, TopTal, and then we can just simply copy paste over here and let us say minify. Have a look. This is the overall code, a very simple one. Copy this now, go back to the code, remove everything that we have here and copy paste it here. So you basically minimized the amount of files, you know, getting transferred from server to the client, and you created one file. Now you are minifying that file content so that you can minify the actual data transfer size. Okay, so you minify this, and instead of calling this as bundle.js, we call bundle.mean.js. And then in the index file, what you do, you basically can refer bundle.mean.js. And then bundle mean.js has everything that I need. And this is the overall logic, which basically does the loading of a UI internally. And now you try to see this. Did we achieve anything which basically is better? Refresh here and check. For downloading bundle sometime back, there was a 0.6 kilobyte and 0.2 kilobyte. Now you carry a cursor over here and see 0.2 kilobyte for actual content and 0.5 KB specifically with the headers is what you see. Okay, so overall content is there is definitely some sort of reduction in amount of data getting downloaded if you look at it. So we have achieved better things. Is it minified? Yes. People just, even if people double click on this and try to shoot a call, this is something which is not easy to understand because it is minified kind of a content. Had it been uglified or so, then even it's superb that people may not be able to understand it easily that way. Close this, understand this now. Is this sufficient? Maybe, may not be as of now. Please have a look. This piece of code, what is the purpose of index? Purpose of index was to basically have a basic UI and an empty div id equal to root. And then what is suggestion, guys? Suggestion is in the other version. I'll call this as version number 4 now, v4. Okay, bundle bbs and so and so. Let's put it over here. This is one more version. And now plan to understand this index.html still has got some sort of common JavaScript code, which is based on the need loads a kind of function or b function, returns or outputs specifically in the UI. So what is suggested then, even this function that we have written can be moved aside. So we can just remove this function from here. Okay, we can remove this function from here and we can push it into another file, and you will find somewhat similar analogy, similar kind of a structuring in case of React.js tomorrow when we start with React. Okay, and here what you see, this file is called as index.js. Okay, and you have this function written over here. If you see, okay, you will see this function over here. And now what is it that I'm supposed to do? You are supposed to refer a bundle. You are supposed to refer script src equal to index.js. So refer bundle.js, index.js is going to be there, which basically refers functions from bundle.js. And then there is a call given to a load function is what you can see. Even the load function call can also be given inside the index.js itself towards the end. Okay, here itself what we can do, we can shoot a call to load home like function. And now index HTML mein, you don't need this extra thing now. Look at the beautiful code now. We have bundle.mean.js, we have index.js referred. And what is the code inside index? Based on the logic, just shoot a call to whatever functions which bundle.mean.js offers us. Have a look now. Does this work? Refresh. It still works exactly in the same manner. We are downloading bundle.js, we are downloading index.js. You can also minify the index.js as well. When you deploy, when you are done with the code, you can also minify the index.js code as well. Look at this, it's working exactly in the same manner as it was working before. If you see, this is something which is single page application. And now just to see the beautiful thing, look at the DOM, okay, getting constructed. With respect to DOM or with respect to the content in a look and feel, look at this. Everything else will remain as is and only a specific portion will keep on loading, okay? Have a look here. Click. Can you see something only loads that highlights over here? Have a look. Click here and only the specific portion is basically getting loaded in this case. Okay, so this is a single page application which loads the look and feel into the div id equal to root based on the navigation that user places. Okay, this is a very tiny JavaScript that we have written which basically makes a single page application possible as of now. which means we can call it as our own, what you call it as logic to define single page application. We have written a code, we have written a library which can help us do something which is called as single page application along with navigation. Okay. Now the thing is, this is exactly what React is also all about. React may you will find out, we'll write down components, function and class. Those will return some sort of UI which can be a data bound UI. Then you will be seeing something called as div id equal to root in case of React, which will be loaded with some sort of content based on the need. You will also see some sort of navigation in place using some sort of navigation library and so on and so forth. Now try to understand this. All of this which we have done, it's literally like a tiny React version. Okay. Then why do I need a React in the first place? If everything we can do by ourselves, why do I need React in the first place? So there is a reason why you will start using React. Okay. So you will find out it is just a simple navigation and loading of a simple hi hello UI is what we have seen in the example. But there can be situations, something like I wish to pass on data while I navigate from home. If I collect something, I want to pass it on to about. From about, I want to pass on some data collected to contact us. How do I maintain this data to and fro? How do I go and try to download the data from the server side? How do I go and ensure that whatever happens as a change in case of UI, you know, the change basically validates and invalidates and maybe changes the content in the backend or changes the content in the background in memory. How do I ensure all of it? So eventually what you need to understand is this is something, or for that purpose, what happens out here is there are several kind of code snippets already written for you, and those code snippets are basically given by somebody like Angular, for example. See, when it comes to React like application content, okay, I'll just try to start with whiteboard. Have a look here. Yeah. So the overall idea is, are looking for, see, our code is very simple. It's a simple navigation with the button click, and then ultimately we are loading a respective UI. But then, can somebody help me manage the data? Can somebody help me manage the calls to the server side? Can somebody help me manage the validations of a data? So specifically, when you're looking for validations, something which is called as DOM manipulation, I am looking for something which is called as data context maintenance. Okay, something which is called as navigation in picture. Okay, etc, etc, etc. If I need all of this, what happens is there is already, see, this is single, I mean along with single page application, huh? So along with single page application, I'll highlight this. Okay, so along with SPA, okay, a validation and so if I need, I'll just try to take this here. So along with SPA, if I need all of this, I'm saying etc, etc. There are multiple features. You will find out for all of this, we can utilize it, all of it, and we can call this as for everything else. We have got something which is called as, I guess I need to just, send it to the back, send it backward. Okay. You will find out for all of this, there is already a huge amount of JavaScript written inside Angular. Okay. A framework which is from Microsoft, which is from Google. Okay. Now the thing is, if Angular is this way, see, I just wanted to go for something which is called a simple hi hello code. If I'm looking for hi hello code to be written in case of Angular, still what you would see is I will end up getting, packages for all of this. Okay. Then the next thing comes up. Why can't I just go and have something which is called as, okay, consider React now. So along with this, along with SPA, what React will actually offer you? React will simply offer you, along with this basic SPA functionality which we saw, React will simply offer you certain functionality like, simple components. Maybe you can just write down your own components, nothing else. Those can be function components, okay, function or class. These are the options that you have. That's it, nothing more than that. And basic DOM manipulation, it can offer. The overall idea is if React can offer you only this much, okay, compared to Angular, if I say, if React is basically offering this much only compared to Angular, Angular is a framework which comes up with huge functionalities even if you don't want it for your application. It's a huge amount of code content which basically it carries a luggage along with it. When it comes to React, React basically gives you basic SPA like functionality. That's it. Nothing more than that. So in React, if at all you see, okay, if I highlight this, in React, if at all you see, I need something which is called as, let's say, navigation. Okay, need navigation, need a navigation, then install it separately. So you will have to borrow and ask, okay, need it, ultimately download it over here, add it over here. So add on demand, add on demand. It won't be there, it won't be carrying a luggage along with it. You need it, you demand it. Okay, you need it, you demand it. Next thing, navigation you need. Okay, are you looking for something which is called as, maybe let's say, take an example, something like, let's say, for data context management. So are you looking for something which is called as, let's say, maybe a basic thing like, maybe I need to maintain a data context over here. Okay, maybe using a library called as Redux, if you've heard of this. So if you need a data context, go ahead and download the package. Okay, you need it, you download it. Add on demand one more time. Okay, so things will not be given to you. You need to ask for it and then get the things done. Okay, at your end. So React is that way lightweight as a library. Angular is more of a framework. It gives you many things even if you don't need it. So Angular is heavy, React is lightweight. In React, if you need certain things, you have to keep on asking, and if you have to keep on downloading the content. From where do you download? For all the JavaScript frameworks, there is a repository called as npmjs.com. And from npmjs.com, people normally publish and download the packages that they need. So React.js is a library, okay, is library over here. A file which will just give you simple SPA feature. Angular is wherein is a framework, okay, which comes up with many basic features like navigation features. It will come up with something which is called as, communication with the server like features. It will come up with some services. It will come up with data binding and so on and so on. So Angular is that way heavy. React is lightweight, but in React you don't get everything. If you need it, you have to ask for it. React is very famous specifically for UI manipulation. Okay, and Angular has almost everything else, specifically on the client-side framework category. So we saw simple SPA versus MPA concept, and we just try to understand, how React can actually help us. So React may, you will see sometime tomorrow that React has got that div equal to root, which we'll see. We'll see navigation as well. We'll see something called as components as well. And then you will try to relate this that, okay, what we did just now, React can just make your life easy that ways. That is what we need to understand. Okay, sometime tomorrow when it comes to React. Now, coming back to the other discussions right now, let me take you to, okay, let me take you to, I guess I'll have to simply go and maybe export this content. Okay, exported. Let me go and so that, I can share this with you guys. And I'll be simply going back to the UI now. Okay, go to screen, go to UI. This is there. Okay, here we go now. So a simple React code is what we are going to want to see tomorrow. But now, are we done? So no, we just try to understand simple SPA versus MPA concept. We try to understand bundling as a concept, and we just try to create several versions of the application. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and have here version v5 maintained, and with v5, I will be adding almost everything that we have defined out here. Okay, this is v5 now. So 5 different variations is what we have seen specifically from the SPA perspective, step by step. Okay, I'll close all of this for a minute, and then you can see it over here. So we saw MPA concept, multi-page application, individual pages is what we have here. You keep on calling the pages. SPA concept, we saw variations, same project or same code we repeated and we did some sort of enhancements every other time. Okay, are we are getting some sort of clarity about SPA, MPA and the frameworks? I'll wait for your comments. I know there's a delay, but then, I hope, you'll be able to answer. Is everybody getting this? Okay, great. Saurabh said yes. I'm waiting for more comments. Okay, great. So now that you are able to understand this, let us take it to the next level. Since React and Angular and JavaScript and Vue.js and almost everything, okay, these things are basically going to run on the browser side, okay. Since these guys are going to run on the browser side, what you need to understand now, if this is running on the browser side, we also can utilize the features. We also know something like, certain features in JavaScript. In JavaScript, we actually get that document object. You saw that yesterday. So that is not the only object that you have in the JavaScript. Okay, that is not the only object that you have in JavaScript. So you will eventually find out JavaScript has got several number of objects. Okay, and let me help you understand those objects now. Okay, I'll pick up again a whiteboard. Let's continue. Let's create a new. Let's create a blank empty canvas and try to understand specifically on the browser side. Okay, let's put it here. If this is a browser, okay, that we have, if this is a browser, and browser basically has got JavaScript engine, okay, so browser has got several things. Browser has got something like this. Browser has got JavaScript engine, okay, and browser also has got your HTML parser, which we saw. Okay, now between these two guys, just to have a communication, what we saw yesterday that to have a communication between these guys, there are some sort of hierarchy of objects which are given to us, and then we try to understand something like, okay, some helper objects. One of the very first object which basically gets initialized is actually called as window object. Okay, so there is an object called as window object. Just like a concept which is called as has a relationship in case of OOP, containment, composition that we call, okay, composition, what you call it as containment, whatever we name it as. So eventually what happens is there is a window object. Window has something which is called as document. It has got something called as navigator. It is another object which is called as history. Okay. It is another object which is called as XML, rather XHR, we can call it as. Okay. It has got something which is called as JSON and so on and so forth. So eventually you will find out window is one of the bigger object and that can have all other objects inside it. But then it is not compulsory that you always go and write down document, I mean window.document.getElement by ID. Window is by default prefix everywhere. Okay, when you write some sort of object in case of JavaScript, some sort of code snippet you write down, some function you call directly, window is always a prefix. Okay, so window has a document, navigator, history, etc. JSON. Now, if we try to understand why do I need these objects? See, these objects can definitely be utilized. These objects, and there's a hierarchy that we know now. Can I just go and maybe draw something like this here? Okay, so there can be some DOM tree that we discussed yesterday. So there can be something like, let's say, a DOM tree. I simply try to draw this. There's a DOM tree. Okay. So let's say there is a DOM tree that we can say. Let's highlight this here. Okay, and let's say this is a DOM tree. Okay, so a DOM tree. And this DOM tree is something yesterday we tried to understand and access via this document object, if you see. Okay, and what did we do? We can access all of these objects, by the way. We can access all of these objects back in something which is called as JavaScript. Okay, so you know a theory over here. Something like HTML parser is capable of producing some sort of look and feel out of the markup written. But then whatever is so-called these HTML elements written, you will find out that these HTML elements are basically presented in object format. Those objects can be called via document inside a JavaScript engine. And the communication between these guys can happen internally. Okay, JavaScript engine and HTML parser cannot talk with each other, but they talk with each other via something which is called as a DOM tree. Okay, they talk with each other via something which is called as a DOM tree. Okay, so this was a theory that we discussed yesterday. So yesterday we used something simple, something called as document as an object. What other objects are there, and then how they can help us? Definitely, there is an object called as history, which basically can, you say go back and forth when you keep on using back button and maybe forward button when you click. So eventually what happens is you keep on navigating between the pages. So the history programmatically also you can navigate through the page in the what you call it as history. You can go forward to the pages in the history using history as an object. History belongs to window. Windows represents your current instance of a browser. Now the thing is, what are other objects? Document we used yesterday specifically for get element by ID, get element by blah blah. We can get a reference and we can just use it for any other reason. Document also has got various other methods. We need to understand right now the couple of objects which basically are very very helpful. Okay, window itself is helpful. There is no doubt about it. Window has an alert function and whatnot. Window has almost everything because window is a wrapper. But then what I want you to see is something which is called as how window object actually works behind the scene. Okay, and I want you to understand a couple of functions which basically I'm very very sure that all of you have seen, all of you have used as well. Now you need to understand the theory behind window object. I'm just going to use couple of functions and you will have a complete understanding about how exactly window is scheduled and it runs. I'm going to go and share this, export this. And now let's go back to the screen again. Okay, so I'll continue. I'll go back to the screen and start sharing the screen right now. Here we go. Pay attention now, everyone. I'll close this SPA. Okay, and then day two, I'll just try to understand. I mean, have another folder constructed, something which is called as objects. Okay, browser objects, well known as BOM. Okay, browser object model or BOM. CMD. Let's open this in VS Code. There we go. Here, try to understand few of the objects. How many? I mean, as long as we can understand these objects, we can just talk about it. So something like index.html. Okay, maybe we can just call it as 00 index. Okay, one of the first demo. Create this. Wait, watch. Here we go. I can have HTML. And the majority of the code lies over here. So I'll be writing some script over here. Okay, looks like IntelliSense is lost. There we are now. So we have a script tag now. And with this script tag, what I want to do is I wish to eventually execute some piece of code. I mean, keep on executing some piece of code, continuously. So I'm sure that, most of us have used, most of us have seen something which is like, window.set interval, window.set timer, like functions. I'm sure that, you may have seen. Let me show you, one of the function only we'll try to see and then try to understand how the sequencing basically works over here. Okay, so I'm just going to go and write down over here log and I will just try to write down hi. Okay, I'll write down over here console.log. Okay, and here I'll write by. Okay, and then there is going to be another function altogether, a function says something, which basically prints on the console something. Okay, and what I want to do is now I want to call over here set timeout. Okay, a timeout of 2000 milliseconds or 5000 milliseconds, and then call say something over here. Call say something over here. Have a look. So those who have used JavaScript, since it's a revision session, I'm sure that you may have seen this. Something like in JavaScript, what I have done is I have written 3 different lines code. Okay, this function can be written somewhere else. I can write this script here. I can say something. Let's close this. Say something is my own function. Okay, have a look here. So in this script, which is about to get executed, what you will see is console.log hi is there, set timeout is there, and console.log by is there. Okay, so what happens now? These 3 code snippets are going to go and execute. How? So JavaScript is running inside the browser. JavaScript is run by JavaScript engine. JavaScript engine is a program and which is basically executing your JavaScript code. So how does it work? If you understand the theory, at a CPU level, at a OS level, a program basically, running program is a process. Process basically is something which has a thread, and thread is something which is scheduled on the CPU. Okay. So specifically, browser has got multiple number of threads. Browser is a multi-threaded environment. What about JavaScript engine? JavaScript engine is a single threaded environment. JavaScript engine is a single threaded environment, which means if these three lines of code is supposed to be executed, what you will see is these three lines are going to be executed by same thread. It means, okay, if JavaScript engine running on a single thread is going to go and execute these lines of code, it is obviously is going to go and execute one function at a time, nothing else. It's just going to go and execute one function at a time. Okay. And how is this is going to gonna work eventually? Try to understand this now. Okay, have a look. Sequentially, what happens? Hi, something, and by is what is expected as output. Try to run this piece of code and observe, guys. Again, run this piece of code and check over here. What is the logic? 00 index dot html. What is 00 index html? Yeah. Okay, did I start the okay? Yeah, I have started 00 index HTML. Let's see. F12. Here we go. F12. Observe over console. Clean. I'll refresh this here. Okay. Observe what happens. When the code runs, it says hi bye. Wait for 5000 milliseconds. And then comes up something. Okay. So sequentially, what does it look like if I put a breakpoint here? Debugger. If you look at the sequencing over here, refresh this piece of code. Okay. JavaScript engine thread is running. JavaScript engine is picking up console.log, runs it. You see on the console hi. Next, it goes and gives a call to set timeout. Okay. Set timeout function normally you must have seen. Set timeout does what? Set timeout internally, delays the execution or calls the function after certain time called as 5000 milliseconds. Okay. It calls the function after 5000 milliseconds, which means there's a delay is what you can say in execution. So set timeout after 5000 milliseconds, we are supposed to call say something, which means 5 seconds later. Okay. But then set timeout is called now, nothing happens. And then we'll call console.log by. Continue, please. You can see by comes up and later on something comes up. You can see it here. Refresh. Okay. Continue. Console page you can see hi and by. Wait for 5000 milliseconds and then what comes up is something. Question is, how does it work? Is the JavaScript engine going back to the say something function and executing this? How is this working even? Something which is already executed, how it is basically working behind the scene? Let's try to understand that. Okay, there's a very nice theory behind this. Okay, have a look. Copy this, try to understand the theory now. Here we go to document, go to window, go here, create a new whiteboard, plan to understand this. These are the three functions that we have. Okay, these are the three functions that we have right now. I'm deliberately going to go and do one thing. I'll just cut this. I'll just try to create this one by one. Okay. So another text here, copy paste, still a function. Cut this, copy paste, still a function. Okay. Now understand this. These are the functions that we have out here. Okay. Now these functions are supposed to be executed by whom? By JavaScript engine. Okay. So there is this guy. Let's call this as JavaScript engine, which is continuously running. Okay, within the browser. So let's say there is a JavaScript engine which is running continuously. Okay. Let's say JS engine. So JavaScript engine thread is running continuously out here. And now what happens is, if this JavaScript engine thread is running, so its job is to basically pick up your statements one by one by one. Okay, so it basically picks up this statement. Okay, and to execute this particular function, it basically puts it on a function stack. Okay, so what happens over here is, you will see this function can be taken up on the function stack now. So JavaScript engine basically picks up the content, and let's say this is a function stack. Memory is what you can say. So what happens out here is, JavaScript engine will basically pick up first line, one line at a time, push this over here, okay, push this over here, and then eventually what will happen, this function stack will execute this line of code, and then you will see on the console, understand me very well, what this puts up is, if this is the console at the bottom, okay, imagine this is the console at the bottom out here. Maybe I'll just put it over here. Okay, if this is console at the bottom, what gets printed on the console is simple hi, nothing else, hi, that's it. Which means from you and me, our perspective, if you look at what are we done with, we are done with something which is like, okay, this code is done, this is done, okay, done, dusted, okay, we have the output. See next now. Now JavaScript engine picks up this particular line, okay, puts it on the function stack. Okay, now the thing that you need to understand, when do I say some function executed successfully? Okay, when do I say that some function executed successfully? When do I say that? Whenever some function executes, either it should return me something, it should do something, it should basically, some sort of output I should see. So if the function returns me something, I would simply say, okay, I got a return value, which means it must have executed. So what happens over here? Set timeout function when given to JS engine to function stack, you need to understand one thing. This function is not written by you. This function is basically window objects function. Okay, and such functions like set timeout, set interval, these are actually called as web client functions. Okay, or client API functions, we call it as. And client API functions, in the sense, they are basically going to be run by, run on different, what you call it as entity thread by the browser itself. Okay, what does that mean? Window object represents a browser. Have a look. Huh? So there is going to be a different area altogether. This area is eventually called as web API or client API. I would say client API, not web API. Its actual name is client web API, but for just to avoid the confusion, I'll just put over here client API. Okay, so this is something which is a browser's area. Okay, this is browser's area, and in here there is a definition for this particular function. Which function? Set timeout. So there is a definition for, see, we are calling a function, which means somebody has written this function, right? So somebody has written this function set timeout. Okay, and set timeout means we have a parameter, a function name, and a time. Okay, a delay. So what I can say is delay over here. Have a look. Okay, and what's the logic written inside this? So logic written is, okay, do nothing. Okay, delay. And then after the delay is over, we are supposed to shoot a call and ask for a function call, that is fn, to be called. Now the function is something which is say something wala function. Please have a look now, understand this. What happens out here? This is the function. Now take an example. This set timeout function, whenever I call this, when I give it to JS engine gives it to a function stack. What happens internally? When this function gets called on the other area of the browser, what happens is, you are shooting call from here, okay, to this function, and this particular function immediately returns you something. This function immediately returns you something, and that return value is actually called as a number. Okay, what if I just try to show you what number does it give me? Okay, let me show you that as well in the first place. Okay, so what happens out here? You get a number. So you get some sort of output from this function call. You get output immediately. Yeah? You get output, which is a number. I'll tell you what that number is. So whenever JavaScript engine receives this particular number, okay, when JavaScript engine receives this number, so from the JavaScript engine perspective, this particular function is executed successfully, which means from the JavaScript engine perspective, if you see, we are done with this piece of code. It is over because we received output. But so far, actual function has not been executed. But from the JavaScript engine perspective, if you see, what happens out here is this particular piece of code, I mean, from the JavaScript engine perspective, this function is executed right now because I received the output. Let me show you what exactly that output is in a minute. What happens meanwhile now? Meanwhile, what happens is we have got this console. Okay, from the JavaScript engine perspective, since this is done, JavaScript engine will pick up this bytecode, put it on the function stack, executes this. Okay, and what you see on the output is after hi, you will see bye over here written. Okay, so what happens over here is after hi, what I receive is bye. Please try to understand this. Huh? So we are done with this piece of code as well. So we are done with this. Done with this. Okay, over. Now what happens over here is say something is still not executed if you see. Okay, what happened over here is right now say something is still not executed. What has happened over here is I executed set timeout. I got set timeout's output, which is simple number in this case. Okay, what I received over here is just a number. What is that number? I'm yet to tell you. Now hold on. From the JavaScript engine perspective, if you look at almost everything over here is we are done with. There is nothing to execute now for a JavaScript engine. And now what JavaScript engine does is since it has nothing to execute, okay, JavaScript engine basically runs a infinite loop. Okay, and it is waiting for something to happen, waiting for something like somewhere somebody will click, something will happen, I will get some function for execution and will execute the code. JavaScript engine runs a infinite loop. It's called as event loop. Okay, so JavaScript engine has nothing to execute. JavaScript engine goes idle, and when it goes idle, what it does is it basically runs infinite loop. Okay, and that is something, it just executes this loop, which is called as event loop internally. It's called event loop. Okay, out here. And this event loop is run. Okay, event loop starts and JavaScript engine is waiting, okay, for any code execution. Meanwhile, from the JavaScript engine perspective, if we are done with everything and JavaScript engine has nothing to execute, here is something else happens. On the browser side, on the browser thread, what has happened is this function which was given by window, what internally happens is a set timeout, basically a delay that you conveyed, 5000 seconds delay. So 5000 seconds or 5000 milliseconds, 5 seconds is over, let's say 5 seconds is over. Okay, when these 5 seconds are over, okay, when these 5 seconds are over, what happens is now we are supposed to call that function. What did you pass as a parameter here? You passed as a parameter, okay, I should highlight this. You passed as a parameter a function called as say something. Have a look. Say something you passed. Okay, and here you said after say something, here you passed 5000 milliseconds as a parameter. Okay, delay 5 seconds, 5000 milliseconds. So 5000 milliseconds you passed over here. Milliseconds, that is something like 5 seconds. Okay, this is what you passed. Have a look now. So after set timeout is done with 5 seconds ka delay, now it's time that we execute this function. Which function? Say something. Now hold on. Say something is the function which is written by Java, which is written by you and me to be executed by JavaScript engine. And now here is what happens. Between this area of a browser, okay, and between the area of a JavaScript engine, there is going to be one queue. Okay, there is going to be one queue internally, which is going to get maintained. Between these two guys, there is going to be a queue. Highlight this here. There's a queue out here. This is a tunnel queue, you can call it as. Okay. It's a one-way queue. And what happens in this particular queue is after 5 seconds, after 5 seconds, what happens is this particular function that you see, say something, okay, this say something is basically is enqueued into this particular queue. Okay, the function is enqueued in this queue. Okay, queue here, this function enqueue over here, this function enqueue say something function. And now say something function is supposed to be executed by whom? By the JavaScript engine. And now what happens is this event loop which is running, JavaScript engine has nothing to do, it's idle now. So what exactly JavaScript engine does is JavaScript engine eventually goes and also hits this particular queue, okay, and asks over here, is there anything for me to execute? Okay, is there anything for me, okay, to execute over here? This is what is checked internally. So is there anything for me to execute? And after 5 seconds, what has basically in what you got as enrolled is say something. The question comes up over here is how JavaScript engine loop knows it has to keep on querying this particular queue. How does it know about a queue even? Please try to understand. Remember this number I talked about some time back out here? When you try to shoot a call to set timeout immediately returned you something if you see. So what was it that was returned by set timeout when you shoot a call? Because set timeout execution is done. On what basis? Because set timeout returned me something. What did it return? It returned me a number. And what is that number? That's a queue number. Okay? Which is a number, and this is a queue number. Is a queue number. Surprisingly, this is the queue number. And that queue number when given to JavaScript engine, this particular queue number, take an example, queue number, suppose 1 example, okay? For example, 1. So this particular queue number is what will be checked continuously after JavaScript engine has nothing to do with, as a work. When this event loop is run, what JavaScript engine does that is this JavaScript engine will eventually check in this particular queue if there is anything. Yes, there is something to execute. This say something function will be taken up by this guy now. So say something will be taken up by this event loop and will be given to function stack for execution later on. And that is the reason you need to understand that JavaScript engine will have some work to do, and that particular say something will be given to function stack later. And that's the reason after 5 seconds you see some say something is getting executed. Now the question to all of you, when was this say something checked? When was this queue checked? This queue was checked when JavaScript engine has nothing to do, or nothing to execute. When JavaScript engine was idle, when JavaScript engine basically was running the event loop. Quick question to all of you. What will happen if, what will happen if a JavaScript engine never goes into event loop and JavaScript engine has got something already for execution available? Then this particular function may enqueue over here, but to dequeue and execute, JavaScript engine's attention is absolutely required. But if JavaScript engine is already occupied in doing something, then definitely what will happen? JavaScript engine will never pull the function and JavaScript engine will never execute the function, which means you cannot really rely on 5 seconds delay. If there is an important logic that you have based on that 5 seconds, then that is something which can go for toss if at all JavaScript engine has some work already available to do. And if JavaScript engine does not start an event loop, definitely it won't dequeue the function. I'll give you a proof of concept over here. Please have a look. Okay, let me share a proof of concept over here. And the concept proof is this. What will happen? Look at the code, okay? Look at the code. I'll try to save this piece of code, okay? I'll go back to the code here. Here we go. What will happen if I try to do something like this? There is a UI, okay, a button, click me, on click, okay, maybe something like disturb, okay, And now what happens over here is I'll have another function written over here. Okay. So in a script, I'll write down some piece of code, disturb. Okay. And here disturbing the peaceful console is, or disturbing something or do something. Okay. I'm important. I'll say I'm important. Okay. Attend me is what I'll say. Have a look now. Whenever I click on disturb, ultimately alert will be shown. Alert means model dialog. It means there will be high importance given to this alert unless and until, see, whenever alert is shown, next line won't execute unless and until I click on OK button of alert. Okay, have a look now. Run this piece of code. Go back to the browser. Okay, look at this. Clean. See, when we don't do anything extra, there is a hi, there is a bye, and there is say something which appears silently after 5 seconds. Okay, it executes well. To show you that literally there is some sort of set timeout return. See, set timeout returns a number if you see. Set timeout returns a number, that's a queue number. Okay, I can hold it over here in a variable queue number for your reference, and that queue number I can also print. Okay, so console.log, okay, a queue number is, and I can simply say queue number. Okay, queue number later on monitored is. I'll have a queue number put up. Have a look now. F12. When you really don't have anything to do, high is written, queue number 2 is there, by is written. From the queue number 2, something will be pulled, say something will be pulled and say something will be executed. All good. Have a look now. Refresh again and click on a button. See now. Refresh and click on a button. What has happened just now? High executed. A queue is created with the number 2 and then by is written. Now there may be a function inside that queue which is say something, but say something is not pulled out by somebody called a JavaScript engine, because JavaScript engine is super busy in showing this alert. And unless and until, okay, if I click on OK button, you will see nothing happens further. Okay, which means even after 5 seconds and the function is there in the queue, I am not executing the function because JavaScript engine is busy doing some work. Huh, whenever JavaScript engine basically gets free, then JavaScript engine can definitely pull the content out of the queue and execute. Have a look now. Then the something appears on the screen. Means ideally this should have been executed after 5 seconds. But because JavaScript engine was busy, there is a delay. It is in the queue, we'll execute it later. And that's how this particular story works, if you see. This particular queue mechanism which we saw, okay, this queuing mechanism which we saw, you will see this queuing mechanism is something which is there. Okay, now this queuing mechanism is for set timeout for all the client APIs. This is for set timeout. Same queuing mechanism is there in case of something which is called as set interval. Same queuing mechanism is there in case of callback and promises. Okay, same mechanism basically is being used. There's a queuing mechanism or a callback queue mechanism which basically it works with. So if the JavaScript engine is super busy doing some work, then the callback queues are attended later on once the JavaScript engine basically gets free. Okay, I hope the question which was asked by Sarosh, I guess it is clear now. Harshal, I guess you got your answer. Yeah, waiting for your rewards. So if you're attending this, I'm sure that you are understanding something new. Yeah. Okay, Sarosh. Thank you. Harshal, is it clear? And is it clear to the guys who are attending it right now, attending the session? Are we clear till now? Yeah. Okay. So just like we have set interval, set timeout, and these functions, you will eventually find out what happens out here is there are so-called several other functions available. Queuing mechanism is super important because in callback, in promises, in case of axios, which we'll see later on in case of React, we'll need to understand these functionalities. Okay, so this is very, very important. So you should have a knowledge about it. Okay, so what we are going to go and do now, we'll be pausing this session, and then tomorrow we are going to go and start with our React application. Okay, tomorrow we are going to go and understand React application, and the first React application we'll be creating, wherein we'll be using React Vite. Okay, so React Vite is what we are going to go and use. Vite as in template. There are two templates. CRA is there, create React app as a template, and the template called as Vite as a template. So I'll explain both the templates, and we'll also try to see why Vite template is more important compared to CRA as a template. And then eventually you will see something like Vite is better than CRA. Okay, so we'll be starting with the React first application tomorrow. There will be some theory, there will be some sort of demonstrations. You can also have questions and questions asked in between, and then we can take it ahead. So enough of what you call it as a revision, and then we try to understand the details, maybe over the period of time. Are we going to learn XHR in this series? We will be learning XHR when we'll reach to something which is called as Axios. Axios as in function. Okay, so we'll be definitely learning Axios, and then that time I'll be explaining about XHR as well. So it would be a good to have XHR covered there. Okay, yeah, I'll be sharing the source code on the group. So I'll put it on the drive and I'll share the link over the group. Okay, the WhatsApp group today itself. Don't worry about it, Jagruti. Okay? Yeah. Okay, yes, I hope I'm clear now. And audio was better than yesterday. And hopefully you try to understand this and it is clear now. Okay. So thank you everyone attending patiently. And I guess we are done. Yeah, so I had it mentioned, Nazim and almost everyone, that you will not be seeing, will not be, you have to attend the sessions live. Okay, you'll have to attend the sessions live, and there is no recording which will be shared. Okay, and so try to, yeah, I'll also be sharing whiteboard notes. I'll be sharing demonstrations. Everything will be shared on the group. Okay, so recording is something which this is not something which is good recording as such. I mean, there is a noise, there is something which is basically even if I try to convert it into something called as what you called the text notes, you will find that this is not a lecture which should go on a YouTube. Ideally it should be good and better recorded in a recording studio. So I'll not be putting this on the YouTube as recorded videos also. Okay. Yes, definitely. We'll be understanding use history and we'll be also understanding a lot of hooks in the upcoming sessions. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I guess we are done now and we can just close this for the day. And in case you want to understand basics about JavaScript, which I covered yesterday, so there is a series that I have on channel Jagruti, which is web programming basics or web programming. So try to understand web programming sessions. Simply couple of lectures will help you to understand everything else. Okay, I guess Jagruti, if at all you want to understand JavaScript and basics, just go through that series, that will help you. Okay, it has much more details compared to what we saw yesterday. Okay, yeah, I just got the mic which is the noise cancellation mic, and in a OBS studio I just try to do some settings that help. Okay, thank you guys, and then see you tomorrow. Thank you.